Hello there, wonderful people. Thank you so much for coming to the Marvin Mukanaka YouTube channel. I am absolutely thrilled to have you, and I invite you and encourage you, if you've not subscribed, to please do subscribe. And those of you that are already subscribers, my appreciation for your support, for your viewership, and for the time that you spend here with me. So please do subscribe if you've not, and do go ahead and share and like and send in comments as we continue to participate together in meaningful conversation towards positive developments. Now, today I have a very, very sad one. Sad in the sense that it even involves the loss of lives. We're talking about Kenya. Kenya, I don't want to say Kenya is in flames, but Kenya is looking like flames though. So I just want to share a few things that I just believe, just my opinions over the whole issue of what is happening in Kenya. For those of you that may be new, you don't really know, you haven't seen the news of what's happening in Kenya. Kenya was just about to pass a bill that would raise taxes, and so the people in the country are tired because things keep getting difficult. And so there's been protests there, mostly young people, the youth are protesting, and as of yesterday, the parliament was breached, and I believe it was burnt down. We saw flames in the parliament and things like that. So those are extremely unfortunate developments. So I just want to dive into this and just kind of give my own understanding of what this really is and how we should look at it. First of all, we know that problems, for those of you that have not seen what is going on, let me just show you a few clips, because this news has now even gone to mainstream media such as CNN. They're broadcasting the developments in Kenya. So that's how bad it is. So for those of you who have not yet seen what is going on, let me show you a few clips and I'll come back and share what my opinions are.
Reject the finance bill! Reject finance bill! Reject finance bill! Reject the finance bill!
And I want to tell this government, we gave you the entry, we are going to show you the exit. Mr. President, watch us.
Yeah, so those are the sad images that we're seeing coming out of Nairobi, Kenya. I believe it could be in other parts of Kenya as well. But here's the first thing that I want to say. Number one, I believe that the taxes in Kenya are being increased because of the debt that the country is owing the IMF, all right, which is essentially Europe, as far as I'm concerned. But Kenya is in debt, and they're owing money to Europe. I don't even want to get into what figures they are, whether they're big figures or small figures. For me, that's not even important. What I'm going to say about that debt is what is important. Kenya or any other African country does not owe the IMF anything. Please, let me repeat myself. Kenya or any other African country does not owe the IMF or Europe or anybody anything. We know that the IMF, Europe, America, and all these other countries in Europe have been giving African countries money, which is aid. And they get the money back on interest. We've read books. I talked about Dambisa Moyo's book, Dead Aid. This is a business. It's not help. They give this money to Africa to make money from Africans. So now, what we need to realize in Africa, these people plundered Africa. And then now, the money that they accrued from the plunder, they now give you and say, give it back to us at interest. So they make more money from you, from the money that they took from you. So how on earth does Ruto start to impose taxes on innocent people that have been robbed to make them believe that they owe money to the IMF or Europe? Those people do not owe anybody money. What is wrong with African leaders? What is wrong with African leaders? Now here, okay, fine. In fact, let me not go in too hard on Ruto or African leaders. Because here's the thing, and I've shared this before in some of my videos. People like I think I did a video where I talked about William Ruto, where I shared a view saying that this guy is either under the gun or he's been seriously bought with a lot of money. It's either one of those two things. Because there's no way a normal president or leader, or even just a person, can be behaving that way, wanting to please the European masters. So those are the two scenarios I see. So, before I go in too hard on Ruto, I believe that he's in a very, very hard place. He's really having to choose between a lion and a snake. That's the choice he's having to make. Both choices he has are bad choices. Whatever he decides to do is bad for him. And this is what has been happening to African leaders. Because of wanting to play into the games of the Westerners. When the Westerners pull you close to them, they are not trying to build you. They are not trying to help you. They are trying to find ways to destroy you. So how William Ruto has been trying to appease, why William Ruto has been trying to appease these Westerners, heaven knows why. But like I said, he's probably finding himself in a very hard place where he's either under the gun or he's been bought. And he has to pay for what the money's worth is. Alright? So, but here's the scenario. Here's what we need to know out of all of these things. Africa does not owe anybody money. IMF, Europe are the ones who owe Africa money. Now, understand this. These guys, these Westerners, they are so good at spinning. They are so good at spinning. Again, this is something I've brought to our attention. They've done this for decades, centuries. That's all they do. They sit every day, hours, 24 hours, 7 days a week. They sit down 24/7 trying to find ways to manipulate people, to take things from people, to take people's lands, take people's properties. That's all they do, nothing else. And so this is a classic example of what they've always done. And so many people will look at the situation in Kenya and think that it's Ruto who's brought the problems. No, it's IMF, it's Europe. Because they have taken things that belong to Africans. I've done a video before here where I've said they still have skulls in their museums and they are making money from those skulls of African ancestors. And then they're telling Kenya that the way to pay back money that you owe us is to exact more taxes from the people. What kind of madness is that? So I'm pretty sure that African leaders must have seen that this is what the reality is. We don't owe anybody money. They owe us money. But because these people operate like the mafia, it's hard for them to say. So they need people like you and I to speak on their behalf, unfortunately. Unless we can continue to have people like Ibrahim Traore and more, like in Mali and other places in West Africa, or Julius Malema, who are standing up and saying we've had enough of this circus. But these Westerners, they are so good at spinning. They have been able to convince Africans for generations that Africans are the ones who owe them money because they borrowed us, they gave us aid. The aid they gave you is money that they stole from you. So if anything, the aid they have given you is just a drop in the ocean of the money they owe you. So why on earth would you as a leader go and exact more taxes from the people to pay back people who are owing you money? Does that make any sense at all? And so this is the awakening that needs to keep spreading across Africa. If anything, Kenya should be trying to find a way to save their president. Because these Westerners have successfully created chaos where they themselves who created the problem are not in the picture. So now it's William Ruto against the youth, William Ruto against civilians. They've successfully brought attention to a situation that they themselves have provoked, and they've taken themselves out of the picture. And that's why now, because it's at this point where now nobody can point a finger at Westerners, now the mainstream media are now picking up the headlines to rub it in. Yeah, you see, we always tell you, Africans can't govern themselves. Africans have always been a problem. And so we need to go out there and help them. And so now if you open your doors for them to come and help pacify the situation, now they're in your country and they're taking over everything. This is what they've done for centuries. And this is all they do. They don't work. They don't do anything else. They only sit down and orchestrate chaos. And so God help Kenya. So I simply came on this platform today to send a message. Africans must wake up to this reality. Nobody, not a single baby in Africa, not a grown-up and old person in Africa, or president or governor, owes IMF or Europe anything. The only way that all of these problems are going to be resolved, in fact, that now that they've successfully manipulated the people to turn against each other, it's now time to take that opportunity and tell them that the only way we're getting out of this mess is for you to pay the reparations that you owe Africa. Europe, IMF, America must pay reparations for slavery and for colonization. Enough is enough. They cause chaos. It never stops. They cause conflict, destabilization, war. It never stops. And the world has had enough of this. The world has had enough of this. So this is very disheartening. This is very disheartening. I don't want to start mentioning mainstream media outlets that have gone to Kenya and they're doing all this ground reporting, talking about all this problem, and they were throwing these stones, counting the stones and counting ammunitions and all of that, and looking very professional because they can count the ammunition, they can count the kind of guns that are being used and all of these things. And they themselves, by talking about all of those things, they are successfully able to deflect from the fact that they are the ones that cause the problems in Africa, that keep progressing from one level to another. These problems in Africa keep progressing from one level to another, but we cannot forget and fail to connect to the fact that these people, the Westerners, the West, they are the ones that have propagated all of these problems in Africa. Let me hear your comments. I don't want to talk about this any further because I'm really just over my head over this issue. This is very upsetting. And all of us that have a voice to speak have to now start voicing out this thing. These things cannot be going on like this anymore. The message that we should all be putting out to IMF, Europe, America is that they must pay reparations for slavery, colonization, and neo-colonization, which is still going on in Africa. There is no way. Kenyans are not going to be made to pay higher taxes to be able to pay back IMF what Kenya owes them. Kenya owes IMF, owes Europe, owes nobody nothing. IMF, United Nations, the Vatican, they are the ones that owe money to Kenyans and Africans in the diaspora. And so they are using all this conflict that they are manufacturing behind the scenes to divert attention to the fact that they owe money to every African and African in the diaspora. They are using all of this confusion that they are mastering behind the scenes to deflect from that fact and make themselves look like angels. And enough is enough. Let me end here. I'll hear your comments. Send me your comments and I'll hear what you want to say about this subject. This is extremely disheartening. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.